Hello. Well, it's Return of the Zombies time. Yeah, you know those horror films where they bury the bad guy and they think they've finished him off and this hand shoots up out of the grave. Yeah, well, that's what's going on here. We've got the Return of the Zombies with the Labour Party. You see, it sort of, it happened most obviously in the Soviet Union, but now it's happened in America as well. You get a party that gets sort of entrenched, and then the people at the top get older and older and older. But they keep on bringing in the old guys because they don't have the younger ones to replace them, because the younger ones are just incompetent and stupid, and they don't have any serious candidates from among them. The younger members of the Labour Party are people like Claudia Webb. I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen it, I'll show you a little video of the calibre of Claudia Webb. So I'll probably freeze myself here and you can take a look.
Thank you, Chair, and I hope I'm not going to be asking questions that you have already answered, but let me just start with a quick fire one on Belarus, as we've just spoken about that. Why does the government not consider legal action to be necessary in the case of Belarus?
In the case of, I didn't catch the name.
Belarus.
So why don't we consider, sorry, what?
Legal action on Belarus.
Why does the government not consider legal action to be necessary in the case of Belarus?
What is the legal action that you're proposing?
Well, I mean, I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, I'm trying to clarify.
Does the government consider legal action to be necessary at all?
Sorry, forgive me. What I was trying to clarify is who do you want us to sue and where?
Well, does the government do you agree that the situation in Belarus requires an intervention from the UK?
Okay, I rest my case on Claudia Webb. And then there's Rosie Duffield, who has so much respect for democracy and the British voter that she stood up in Parliament and said, "The majority of the Parliamentary Labour Party wanted us to remain and were campaigning really hard on that. And towards the end, almost all of those people had signed up towards a people's vote." People's vote was their nice name for another vote on the on Leave Europe vote. So the majority of us, we are still desperate to rejoin if we possibly can. I don't think that's going to wash too well, but she didn't even seem to be aware of how bad that would have sounded to the average British voter. She continued with, "We will try and shift the leadership as and when it needs to shift towards rejoining." I mean, yeah, a deep down Democrat, isn't she? But then, well, she was never one for following the rules of the majority. She had to step down as a Labour Party whip when it was discovered that during lockdown, I mean, the beginning of the lockdown, when it was at its most stringent and where everybody was the most worried, she had indulged in a couple of dates with her married lover, who came across London to spend time with her. He was married, by the way, to somebody else, not to her. So not only did the law of the land at the time not apply to her, but also the law of the church. Now, I suppose that sounds frightfully old-fashioned of me, but I reckon, personally, I'm, as you all know, I'm not that religious in any way, but I reckon that the betrayal of a marriage is one of the worst betrayals a person can commit, because you are living with somebody that you have promised to be faithful to, and you're living with them, and betraying them and then looking them in the face. And I don't think much of that lover of hers, frankly, and I don't think much of her for allowing it to carry on. Okay, well, yeah, that's for another discussion. Back to the vacuum that exists in the cranial space between the Labour Party's collective ears. We see that now that Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson, the Cray twins of British politics, are inveigling their way into the system again and offering to give the present leader, Keir Starmer, advice. Poor chap. I feel so sorry for Starmer. He has the choice of taking advice from Tony Blair, who took us into a war in Iraq on a lie, or he has people like John McDonnell, who is a communist, and he's in favour of, well, not only taking everybody's private property, but of legalising sympathy strikes, which were what crippled Britain in the late 1970s. And remember, well, Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson might say they're going to give advice, but, well, in politics, there's no such thing as giving. You always have to pay for it one way or the other. Here's the article. New Labour architect Lord Mandelson says he would love to work in Keir Starmer's government and reveals Tony Blair is offering the party leader advice. It was Mandelson who came up with the idea of rebranding the Labour Party. That was his thing, because it had this sort of dusty, staid, decaying industrial taint to it, and he came up with New Labour, and they had the rose symbol, and that was going to be all new and spanking, and a lot of people fell for it, of course. So but now what's he going to do? Call it New Labour? So I've been thinking of I made some notes on possible new names. He might find this useful. New Improved Labour might be the way to go. Now, what did I put down here? Socialism represses the parts other political systems cannot reach. No, let's try this one. New Labour. I'm loving it. A bit cheesy, maybe. Okay. Labour makes exceedingly good laws. Well, no, it doesn't. So I think I've got it. The Labour Party. It's great. Yeah, that'll do. Anyway, there was a slogan in Britain. Britain did a very good thing in, I suppose it would have been the late 80s, when the AIDS epidemic was cutting a swathe through society, and they wanted to remind people to be careful of it and to take advice and all the rest of it. But they did it in a very good way. They did a very heavy advertising campaign, and it was a good advertising campaign. It was something that Britain did really well at that time. And of course, Princess Diana helped, because she fronted the whole idea of, people, AIDS victims are human too. So I think Britain got off quite well in that situation, as bad as it was. But they had this slogan, AIDS, don't die of ignorance. And, whenever I think of socialism now, I think of Venezuela, I think of the 100 million people who died in Russia and China, or maybe more than that, of socialist idealism in which people were put into place who didn't know how to do things. And things like Lysenkoism and stuff like that. And now there are lots of young people who think socialism is a pretty neat idea, and they're going to be caught by by any of these slogans. And all I can think of is that we should remember the AIDS slogan and tell them and socialism. Don't die of ignorance. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.